if I could overcome that, then I could pretty much overcome anything.
This is Climbing Gold. Let's put this in the broader context of your climbing. How did you start climbing? Where were you born? How did you come to the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
How did you find rock climbing? How did you eventually get into the Sierra?
It will probably start as more of a sad story because I was born in Ukraine. I tell people that I was born in the Ukraine, but I was born in Belarus, about 300 miles north of Chernobyl nuclear reactor. My mom was pregnant when the Chernobyl nuclear reactor exploded, and I was actually supposed to have a twin brother, and he came out as a stillborn, and as a consequence to this explosion, I had horrible health problems throughout my childhood, and I wasn't even able to participate in the gym class till I was in high school. It's pretty crazy, how far I've gone from then to now.
Like how? Describe those health consequences from Chernobyl. I mean, that's so crazy. How did that manifest? What did that mean for you?
When I was growing up, at around 6 or 7 years old, I started developing signs of eczema and asthma. And for some reason, it progressed to the point that my eczema got so bad that I would scratch off all the skin, off all the bends on my whole body. And by that, I truly mean it. There would be no skin left. I would just have open meat all around, and then it would crust off, and at some point start to get infected and rot. And then my other parts of my body were covered with these pus-filled boils that would hurt like hell. And as a child, I just remember I would stay home and not be able to go to school for weeks at a time when that was going on, and I would just pick at each pimple trying to get the pus out, and every so often the crust that would form would have to be debrided, which means that you put a compress on, and at some point it sticks to that crust, and it has to be ripped off, and some sort of an alcohol-based solution has to be poured over so that it doesn't get affected again, and hopefully you can then form the crust that's not infected.
That honestly makes me feel a little sick. That's as painful as it sounds, I assume. I mean, is that horrible?
It's not fun.
Yeah, that sounds like the worst. Just I'm like, oh my God,
I don't
that's
know.
horrible.
After talking about it, I don't know how I will bring back a sense of humor into this conversation.
I'm like,
but I'll
oh
do
my
my
God.
best. What is important is that for most of my life, I was not comfortable talking about it. And I feel now that I'm an adult, I did some therapy, and now I feel like I have regained the control over all these things that happened to me, and I can actually look back at these events and view it as something that gives me extra strength to be, a stronger adult. And if I could overcome that, then I could pretty much overcome anything. And for most of my life, I had the opposite view of those events. And it's not just horrible health. In addition to, not being able to participate in any sports as a child, because I also had severe asthma, and basically I was designated to only play as a goalie and follow sports on TV at best. My mom moved to the United States with her second husband, who I think immigrating to a new country is just a huge stressor for people. And he became very abusive to me and my mom, and we actually had to escape from him at one point. Soon after moving, about 6 months to a year after moving to United States. and it was very difficult to survive because she was working on a low paying job, and when I was about 14, I started passing out flyers for Domino's Pizza, and then I started to work on the inside as soon as I was legally able to work, because you can't till you're about 15. But I ballooned up to about 300 pounds when I was in my early teenage years. So basically, I was being made fun of at school for being fat and for not being able to speak English. So it just led to like all kinds of insecurities over time. And I feel like when I got into climbing, after all, it helped me overcome all these issues.
Yeah, how did you overcome that? I mean, it seems like you were sort of set up to go on a completely different life path than you're currently on. Like how did you change direction so dramatically?
Yeah, 100%. I was actually dared to step on a scale by some of my friends that were basically just laughing about how big I was. And when I got on, I realized that I am 300 pounds, which was totally crazy to me. When you are gaining weight, and I'll tell you that from experience because now I have so much of it, you don't actually see yourself as like being fat because you see yourself every day, and you don't notice the slight changes that like happen over a course of a year and a half or whatever. But when I saw the number on the scale, it was just a huge shock to me, and I immediately had like the desire to do something about it, and I decided to join our high school football team in order to try to try to get some fitness, and it was a really long process of slowly getting into better shape. But after one season of playing on the team, I was able to shed about 40 pounds, which is pretty crazy. And then that gave me a belief that I could get into athletics on my own. And I started after graduating from high school, I started boxing and doing Muay Thai. I dropped down to about 185 pounds in the process, and I was a very different person. Even though I wanted to help people and work as a nurse, when I went to college, I directly picked nursing as my profession. I was also hanging out with people that were into going out to clubs, starting bar fights. Like I wasn't hanging out with good people. Like sometimes I would get into brawls, like legit brawls, like knock people out. I was very different.